And so civility is, again, defined as being civil, but it's a platform to where basically we set the table and then we become the mitigators to make sure that each side has a voice and that their voice is heard. So when there's people that are basically divided, or they're contentious, they don't want to work things out. A lot of times, from work, for instance, it goes to HR, right? And HR makes that decision, and then somebody gets in trouble, somebody gets sent home. That kind of thing is what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to have them understand, because the reality is that there are people that we work with that we don't get along with, and that's not a problem. The problem is that when you work with somebody and you start to actually bash, to the point to where now you don't want to work with them anymore, right? So for us, the way to be able to what we call keep peace in the public square is that we hear both sides and allow each side uninterrupted to share their truth, to share what's going on with them and why they do what they do. So I may think of a person as an example. People may think that hey, Sid's an idiot. I don't like that guy. You know why? Because he's just this way and that way. And now Sid gets to speak. Like, you know what? When I was younger and this happened and blah, blah, blah. And so this is the way that I view things. And that's just the way it is. So they may go, you know what? I still don't like Sid. I still think he's an idiot. I'm not going to support him. But I do understand where he's coming from. Okay, I don't agree with him and I'm not going to support him, but now at least I know why he does things the way he does. So for us, that leads to two things, and being able to make sure that there's peace in the public square. One is the golden rule, to treat others the way that you want to be treated, and the golden question. And Brother Gavin, you know what the golden question is? If the shoe were on the other foot, would it be any different? So when you're talking about being fair, just remember that, hey, I don't want to work with this person, blah, blah, this, because blah, blah, blah. If it has anything to do with race, if it has anything to do with gender, if it has anything to do with being personal, that's going to come out. And so, again, if the shoe were on the other foot, would you want that person to be feeling the same way you are towards that person? And, that comes down to what I believe is actually the first two commandments, right? And so that's why I really appreciate the tools that civility offers. And again, being an advocate for youth anxiety, stress, and depression disorder, I find it a blessing to be able to talk to kids. Now, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not claiming to be. All I know is that I do have, with civility, tools that we use. And again, it's a mindset. It's an opportunity to see if it works. And dealing with my kids, the only way that I believed it was the fact that it worked with them. And there's peace in the public square, because even though my daughter and I were, bashing heads a lot, now we don't, I don't have that perspective with her anymore. And, I look at her as like, well, she's going to do what she's going to do. And I don't have to like it, but I understand why she does it, because she has panic attacks. I didn't know that before. She's constantly dealing with anxiety. She's not comfortable around crowds. So there's a lot of things that I didn't take into consideration before. But after being able to be trained in CIT, crisis intervention training, now I know what disorders look like. I know in regards to where they can find the professional help and a direction that I can give them. I also know that if a person is like, for instance, psychotic or are hearing voices or have that type of extreme um, type of disorder, there's two questions you ask a person that's hearing voices. Um, One, do you want to hurt yourself? And two, do you want to hurt anyone else? What is the voices telling you? So if that's a yes to any of those questions, then here in the state of Nevada, there's numbers that you can call. There's also, you can call Metro, and Metro will respond under the Legal 2000. So there's a lot that I learned in the process of what Metro, on how they get involved, how the court system gets involved, where the funding comes in, because right now we are very overwhelmed with these type of issues and disorders that are going on in all these states. It's not just here in Nevada. I know Utah has their share, Hawaii has their share. There's around United States, around the world, there's so much division. There's so much clashing. There's things that are changing right now that people are upset because, change brings, uncertainty, and people don't like that. And sometimes for us, when we get a new job, it's like, well, I look forward to the new challenges, but people that have those type of disorders, that's not good for them. So those are the things that I learned. And I'm like going, you know what? In civility, I started writing books, civility, the next generation. So I started writing one basically in regards to specifically Polynesians, because we have a chieftain system, a Matai system. One of the things that I learned is that I think this was a few years ago when the three Samoans in Salt Lake were shot. I happened to be there, and Attorney General Ray has called me, and Amua Amata, Congresswoman for American Samoa. So the three of us showed up and was able to talk to the leadership that was going on. And I forget what city it was, but one of the questions that it was asked because of the worrisome and valid worries, what about our children and their safety, and what do we need to do to keep them safe? And so one of the teachings and the mindsets that I basically go to with being able to help the parents understand is, number one, our ways are not helping them. Our mindsets of old school does not translate to help any of these kids nowadays. This is a whole different animal, and the tools that they need have nothing to do with our day. And I'm talking about baby boomer generation, Generation X. These generations are not able to translate to the millennials, to the Z generation, and now to the Alpha generation. And I'll tell you why, because there's a generational gap. And it happened about 38 years ago. That generational gap happened when the internet got involved. That happened 38 years ago. When the internet came involved, 10 years after that, the platforms for social media began. And those were like seeds of just the worst things that could be planted. And so I basically, I talk about in the book that I'm writing that the generations are faced with what I call the tree of knowledge syndrome. So what does that mean? So I'm going to get a little biblical. So Adam and Eve, when in the garden, they were told that they can partake of all the fruits except one tree, which was the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. So the question is asked, why? So we know that maybe there's obedience that's involved. And we know that obviously there are consequences to any actions that are involved. But speculative of being able to pray about this, Adam and Eve were innocent, they were naive, and they were inexperienced. Our kids today have been introduced to the tree of knowledge through the cell phones. Their minds are innocent, naive, and inexperienced. Think about what they watch every day on these social media platforms of good and especially bad. It's a two-edged sword. But if they are not prepared to understand the consequences, you'll get social medias that put out the stupidest things of challenges. As an example, get on a car while it's driving, get on top, and this is going to be fun. Well, how many kids have died from that? Who thought that that was a good idea for these challenges to happen to kids who are exposed to this, that have no experience? They're so innocent that when they go on and other people basically talk about them and they don't know them, they're already willing to commit the ultimate act because they can't take it. The peer pressure, the negativity. So understanding that the mindset of the innocent, naive, and inexperienced are basically being thrashed, which is resulting with anxiety, stress, and depression disorder. Now, again, that is just my philosophy of what I see, but it's the truth that I see. There is a solution, and the solution is, and you have to have a solution in order to work that out, is maintaining vigilant over the use and access to these social media platforms, because they are addicting, and these kids will watch it every day, all day, without interruption. That's where their mindset is. That's where they want to be, because it's so captivating. And then they see a lot of the things that they shouldn't be seeing, and that gets planted. And that's what's going on, is there's no accountability, and our children have free range to the tree of knowledge with an innocent mind and being inexperienced and not knowing how to go about doing things that they're seeing. It's being set up as a disaster. And so that's why I wanted to bring that up and share with, especially with our cultures, is because with this Matai, or this chieftain system that we're in, the people don't have a voice. The leadership speaks, and this is it. Listen to me, that's it. There's no dialogue from boots on the ground of the people that are actually suffering. You'll hear one, and that's it. Maybe another person, and that's it. And then you'll get this, this blanket of that fits all. It's like that's not how this works. Each person has a different type of disorder because they're gone through a different experience. And I'm not I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I only play one on television, but I do know that the truths of the experiences that I have have had with not just my children, but other family members that are children. Um, you know, sadly, my my cousin's daughter, um, and it's very troublesome. But I will say this, that she was going to a school in Hawaii, and she took her life. And so and I love this because another good brother, close brother, shared this, and I love his perspective. And when anytime you use words, be careful of the words that you use. So when a person takes their life, understand that nobody in their right mind looks to just take their life. So when you use the word committed, like somebody committed suicide, committed has such a negative connotation attached to it. Like somebody committed murder, somebody committed a felony. It's like automatically it's like, oh, well, they took the easy way out. What's the easy way about that? Because the thing is, when you have been dealing with mental health issues, you have no clue with what they're going through. And you have no clue with the pain and the tolerance that they're fighting this every day to hold on. And so when I heard this with my niece, one of the wonderful things that came out of it is she said to my cousin, Dad, I'm not the only one that feels this way. I've talked to other friends of mine, so please help them. And I, am now on a mission to really help bring some clarity of this to the minds that are basically being affected and have no tools to be able to help them, get through this one step at a time. Because that's exactly what we go through. Imagine what we go through in our straight mind and the pressures that we go through every day of the negativity that we fight when just the smallest things occur. It's 1,000 times more when you're having these mental health issues and these disorders. And so that's why I feel what a needed what a needed tool that is above all something that could help not just our youth, but now we're going to go back into the specifics. For me, it would be in the Polynesians and being able to have the higher ups with the matriarch and the patriarch system built, within our society, that older is supposed to be wiser. But the problem is that we never experienced having the phones with us 24/7 all of our life. So we don't know what's going on in our kids' mind who never had the experiences. So what they're fighting on a daily battle, we easily look at that and say, no, I'm not going to go for that. Well, it's because we're experienced. We've had multiple experiences on the daily for years and years and years to be able to combat that. But these kids don't. So I definitely feel that there is an absolute need, and what I'd love to do is to, when it's ready, to send you a book. One the Stuck Between the Rock and a Hard Place, and then another book I will send you is one that I'm writing called Civility, the Next Generation, and almost finished with it. But a book that I love with my mentor, he wrote many books, and one is called When Histories Collide. And I love that because when he's talking histories, he's talking about the truths of each history of their personal experiences. So you may not like the way somebody does things, but they do it out of their culture. Well, what do you know about their culture? And and vice versa. Well, what do I know about them? And I don't. So this is when we look at somebody and like going, hey, well, in the Middle East, it's okay to hold a little, child's hand with affection because they marry kids over there. Over here, it's like, no, 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 no. Well, okay, I won't agree to that, obviously, but you're not in the Middle East. So what do you understand about our laws? Because right now you know what I'm saying? So everything has its different perspectives. And if in a different part of the world, it is viewed differently. Hey, hon, can you please get getting ready to die on my laptop. So it depends where you're at in the world. It depends what your culture is. It depends what your belief is. And all that basically comes into circumference of being able to say, well, this is my truth. And regardless if you like it or not, it doesn't matter. Now, if you want the data, I'll give you the data. Then maybe you can say, oh, now I understand, because I see that in the Middle East, that's accepted, but it's not accepted here. It's accepted in Norwegian. This is how we do in our culture, but it's not accepted here. And Samoa, we do this, but they don't do it over here. So again, these different platforms, all our cultures are a two-edged sword. They work for you and then they work against you. So I am writing based on those outlooks, because one of the things that I don't agree with, and it comes along with the culture. Hon, can you get an extension cord, please? Is that if you look right in here, that in our culture, when it comes to funerals or weddings, the elder generation, like your parents or grandparents, always expect you to pitch in money. Well, if you don't have the money, you got to go out and find it. And I'm just like, no, I'm not down with that, because I love my culture, but is my family going to look at me differently because I can't afford it? There's one, big gray one right through the door and to the left. And are they going to love me any less because I haven't met them? And, now there's a funeral and I'm sending money to someone I've never met before, but because they're family. And I'm just like, listen, I will help if I can help. But if I'm in debt, I'm sure my culture first is the culture of Christ. That's the way I look at it now. And we're told to live within our means. And so that dictates and supersedes anything that my culture tells me that I should be doing, putting myself in debt. So those are things that personally for Sid, just drop it and pull the other side and go plug it in, please. For Sid, it's my in the wall right over there. This is my personal, views of what I believe and whatnot. So I'm not telling you that, don't send any money. I'm not telling you. I'm just saying, for me, I don't want to go into debt, and I don't want anyone in the event, and you're seeing this live, that if anything were to happen to me, that you feel a need to send money. I'm like, no, don't. Especially if you don't have any money. I'm not asking for money, number one. I'm not asking for help. Gratefully, the preparation of my companion and I, who was very smart, I married up. So
good job.
Yeah, thank you. So understanding that a lot of our cultures depend on on when we basically pass through the veil, it's like our families end up paying. And I don't want that. And I try to teach to keep out of debt with that by being able to get the insurance that you need that will pay for it. And I don't want our kids to have to pay for it. I don't want our grandkids. I don't want our cousins. I don't want my siblings. I want you to take care of your family. And I'm going to take care of my family. So if anything happened to me or my companion, our children are taken care of. Because that's the system that we've been blessed with to learn as we came from the islands of what we were taught. Our parents, our grandparents taught us their truth of what they knew during their time. So in our time, we learn more, hopefully, to help us progress to where we don't become dependent upon those left behind to care, financially for the needs and obligations that we once had. I don't ever want that to be the case, but unfortunately, we've experienced it many times. And I'm saying just for me and my family, I don't want that to be us. So we prepared to prevent that. And I echo that, same challenge to other family members. If you can help by being able to have other families look into preparing for that, because it's inevitable. This is the Lord's plan, is that we're going to come here, we're going to learn, and a lot sooner than we think at times, we end up crossing through the veil. And, that saying, that stinky saying, it's expensive to die. It's like, yeah, it is. And unfortunately, we see it all the time because, we're paying. And this is not something that we prepared for, right? Especially now within these last 2 years, 3 years, how many loved ones have passed that we know? And how many have we attended? And a lot closer clumped together, one after another, and you're like going, man, I'm broke. I ain't got no money. Well, that's the thing, is that you shouldn't have to. If you want to and you volunteer, that's a whole different thing. But you shouldn't have to be dependent upon to make sure that you personally need finance by the families that are left behind for you to be taken care of. Because I feel that that's selfish. And that's just my personal view. That's my personal view. But I do believe that that's what and I'll continue to believe that and teach that to my children. I'm like, why would you, leave that in the hands of others when you can prepare for it while you're alive? So, any other questions there, brother? I'm going to kind of leave that open to you now.
Yeah, man. No, seriously, you shared so many good, so many good bits of information and mana'o, advice for everybody. I know for a fact that there's going to be a lot of people watching this channel appreciating the advice you give. And yeah, when you get a chance, if you ever, when your book comes out and everything, let me know. I'll promote that thing, put it on the channel, put it in the description and everything, man, because that needs to be put out there. I have seen that happen personally here in Hawaii. One of my friends, in fact, my wife, one of her friends that lives out in Mililani side, they had a family member that the son committed suicide because he felt like he couldn't live up to certain standards or whatever it was. And the son was only 18. And so the family actually subscribes to this channel, watching all this advice and stuff. And so I know them, among a whole bunch of other people, are going to get good tidbits from you and great content, great information. Good, putting out positive mindset, positive content is much needed. I do want to ask you one question, though. what is one challenge that you overcame in your life that was like very significant to you? Like, what is one challenge you'd be willing to share with everybody that you overcame and has been like made a big difference for you in progressing forward? Anything you're willing to share?
Mm. Well, I'm going to share a challenge that I had that's personal to me, and as a person of faith, and I'm sure that many of us that are members of our faith that watch this and can relate. So after I served my mission, I was very active as a temple worker. Um, One of the promises that I remember hearing as I left from my president was that because I served with honor, that I would have a wife with a testimony that is so great waiting for me. It's like the heavens will open, and I'm like going, what? And so I get back and cricket, and I'm like, all right, so am I being too selective? So I was going to the singles ward, and um, I'm not specific, and I guess I turn a lot of I turn a lot of poly girls off because it's like someone girls came up to me, why don't you date me? I said,
Wow.
because your brother's gonna beat me up if I don't like you, and I ain't gonna like you if you're gonna eat all my food. But no, but joking aside, I would always get well, why don't you? I says, well, I'm not the kind of person that I'm looking at a specific type of ethnicity. I just felt like I gotta feel attracted to you. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I perceive things. And a lot of times it's not by your looks. It's a lot by your attitude. It's your views. Are you, serious about yourself to the point to where I look at him like going, well, that ain't gonna work with me. I can tell you that right now. And too bad, because she's a beautiful girl, but no. But I'm just saying that happened even so because I got off in from 89 to 91. So 96, because 95, I went to Hawaii and I'm hanging out, Laie. And I happened to attend. So let me back up. So at this point, I'm no longer active. At this point, I'm like, man, it's like maybe I need to go find my promise. Maybe she's a non-member, and so I started like, hey, I'm done. I'm done because I just go to ward and there's nothing there that I feel that spark. So I go to the Cannon Center, and this is when Brother Oaks, President Oaks, was in the Quorum of the 12, and he was speaking, and I didn't remember anything about the talk, but I do remember that there was about 8 of us that were standing in the gym after everyone cleared. Maybe about, I don't know, about 50 to 60 people left in the gym. And this is already like, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes after it cleared out. So we're just chatting, there's 7, 8 guys in the circle. We're kind of just catching up and shooting the breeze. And all of a sudden, the room gets quiet. And I look and I turn around, and President Oaks is walking towards us. And he says, I don't know who I'm supposed to say this to, but I want to let you know that the Lord is mindful of you and the search of a companion. And I'm thinking that could be any of us because we're all single, right?
He's like, it's you, brother. Nah, just kidding.
So I'm looking around, and I'm finally like, okay, President Oaks, can I ask you a question? So I got off my mission in 91, and I just been dating around, but I'm not finding anyone that I love. And I said that word that I love. It's like that I would love to be with, and that I see myself with through eternity. And then he said to me, "Oh, excuse me." And then I said, "So what am I doing wrong?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, what are you doing right?" I'm like, "Huh?" And I go, "Well, I was going to the temple. I was working in the temple. I had my callings." He goes, "Okay. So that's one square of the pie. What about the rest of the pie?" And I'm like, "Huh?" He goes, "So the balance of our life is like a pie, and each piece is church callings, is dating, is work, is school. It's like every facet of our life. Are you attending to all of these evenly?" And I'm like, he goes, "That's why. Because you have to make sure that each of these pieces are being given equal time. You can't just be focusing on going to the temple. It doesn't work that way." And he goes, "And let me tell you something else about the word you use, love." He goes, "You need to be careful with that." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Because you're going to marry someone because you love them?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "So what happens when you marry them and you fall out of love with them?" I go, "But don't you get married because you love someone?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's a big part of it. But I would suggest to you that there is a bigger word." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm listening." And he goes, "And the word is called compatibility." He goes, "Do the girls that you date, are you compatible with them?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Then those are the ones you shouldn't be dating." And I says, "Okay." I says, "But also if you love somebody, you'll overlook their shortcomings." He goes, "But do you notice that you have friends that you are compatible with, and regardless of what they do, you still are friends with them?" I go, "Yeah, because you don't judge them. You accept them for who they are, even in their shortcomings." And he goes, "Can you imagine having a companion like that, where you don't look at her shortcomings, where you accept her for who she is, and that you guys are compatible? And guess what's going to grow? Love."